Hello, it's Lynn Watts here. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about some specific tactics or strategies that you can use with students, things you can teach students when they are feeling anxious or stressed. And of course, these are two of the most common problems that we find with students today that they are going to bring to you or talk to you about. Stress usually involves an emotional, but also a physical kind of tension. So you might find that students their heart is beating rapidly, maybe they're sweating, they're shaking, they're nervous, physical kind of symptoms, as well as mental and emotional. Usually stress and also anxiety, which is more or less the same thing, has to do with anticipating future events. All right. So perhaps I have a test next week and I am stressed over whether or not I'm going to be able to pass the test, or whether I'm going to learn the information or know the information, or I'm anxious about the outcome. So usually when we're feeling stressed or anxious, it's because we're projecting something into the future. And oftentimes that is something negative. Now, I will say that stress can be productive. It can be positive. So in other words, if you have a mild stress and you're worried about passing that test and it causes you to be motivated perhaps to study, then that would be a positive kind of stress. On the other hand, if the stress is so extensive that you cannot get your mind on studying and instead you're totally focused on failing and how you're going to feel when you fail and you already feel like a failure, then of course that's when you're going to need some of these tactics. So these are four general kind of tactics, and then you can make them specific to the student in terms of what you think would be the most effective. So the first tactic is simply deep breathing. And this is something that I think over the past several years, we've all become very familiar with. And it simply means paying attention to and controlling our breathing. And of course, if we're anxious or stressed, we tend to breathe rapidly, kind of short breath. We're not getting enough oxygen into our lungs. And so if we slow down our breathing, pay attention to it, take deep breaths, pause with the breathing, then not only do we give our mind something else to focus on besides what we're worried about or anxious about, but we also slow down our heart rate, we slow down our breathing, and our body overall tends to relax. So deep breathing can calm both the mind and the body. Another tactic or strategy is progressive muscle relaxation. And you can, of course, combine both of these, or actually all four of these tactics. You can do some deep breathing, and then you could move into progressive muscle relaxation, which simply means going through the different muscles in the body and specifically tightening, tensing them, and then relaxing them, noticing the difference between the two. So many times we keep our bodies very tense, especially if we're stressed, and we don't ever relax them. We don't even notice that we're tense. So this is paying attention to that, specifically tensing a muscle, for instance, tensing the shoulders, then relaxing, tensing the arms, tensing the hands, and relaxing. So that's progressive muscle relaxation, and it helps us become more aware of our bodies, the tension in it, and also to specifically relax that, which of course is going to help us to feel less stressed. The fourth one is visualization. And the visualization, of course, doesn't actually involve any physical aspect of the body, but it involves visualizing some scene or environment that we would find calming, relaxing, and then noticing different aspects of that. For instance, if being at the beach is very relaxing to a student, you might say, imagine yourself at the beach, and then you might have them pay attention to all the different aspects of it. You know, what's the temperature? How does that feel? Do you hear the sound of the waves? Do you hear birds? Can you smell the salt air? And so on. So again, you're taking the mind off of what is stressful, and you're helping them to focus on something that helps to calm them. And of course, calming the mind is going to result in calming the body as well. So you can also use visualization, of course, to overcome stress in a particular situation. So you could have a student visualize taking the test, feeling confident, noticing things around them, noticing the quiet in the room, noticing or imagining themselves answering questions in a positive way, feeling confident, feeling secure about what's happening. So there are different ways to use visualization, but it is definitely something that can be useful with stress and anxiety. The last one that I think perhaps we don't often think about is mindful movement. And I think this is really helpful for anybody, but especially for young children who oftentimes, especially in school, are so often asked to be quiet, to be still, to, not basically not move, and they have a lot of energy. So taking them on a walk around the building, even, if you can't get outside, around the inside, the outside of the building, around a playground. And while you're doing that, making it a very mindful walk. So you're walking, and then perhaps you're paying attention to what's going on around you. What's the temperature? What do you hear? What do you smell? Again, all of the senses are ways to help the body to focus on something besides all of this monkey mind kind of images that we have of disaster, impending disaster, which keeps us stressed. You could also do some deep breathing while you're doing that, or some positive visualization. So you can combine these different tactics to help students learn how to handle stress. One important thing that I want to mention before I go is that all of these tactics are things that it's really important to teach students at a moment when they don't need it. So in other words, you would want them to practice deep breathing early on, not just before a test, all right? Or a week, or maybe on a daily basis, to take 5 minutes and to practice some deep breathing, so that when they feel themselves getting stressed out, they can do some progressive muscle relaxation, or they can visualize that scene that they've already practiced, visualizing that as a calming place for them, or they can get out and take a walk and get their mind off of the things that are bothering them. So practice is really the key. These are not magic techniques that you do once and, bingo, you're no longer stressed or anxious. They're actually practices that students need to learn to use on a regular basis, even when they're not feeling stressed, so that they find them useful when they are stressed. All right. Well, thanks so much for listening, and I hope you find that helpful as you work with students who are anxious and stressful. Again, Lynn Watts with Wyatt the Wonder Dog Books, and thanks for listening.